Hello everyone, this is Andrew McNair from Swan Capital with our April SWAN Report. The spread of COVID-19 sent stocks tumbling in March as health and economic costs of the pandemic began to mount. Always, please review the following disclosures after this video. But let's get started. The Dow lost nearly 14% in March. The S&P 500 lost 12.5%, and the NASDAQ lost nearly 10%. It was a very volatile time to be in the stock market in March 2020. And earlier in March, investors were grappling with a lot of troubling headlines as they were coming in. Luckily, there was some silver lining when the Federal Reserve cut interest rates to almost zero, and several actions were designed to help support households and businesses. However, with all that good news from the Fed, markets were unfazed. Instead, they wanted to focus on the contraction of the economic growth from COVID-19. Now, as prices were falling in the hospitality, travel, and real estate industry because of these newly instituted social distancing rules, we saw them take the brunt of COVID-19. But also, banks were not immune. Banks and financial stocks were heavily taken down by the lower interest rate environment. And energy prices were not alone because they saw new lows in oil prices, partly because of the feud between Russia and Saudi Arabia. And that's why households are seeing a lot lower gas prices at the pump. Now, in the weeks to come, investors will be closely watching the status of new cases of COVID-19, but that's not all. We're going to be watching closely fresh economic data that is coming in. One thing that we're going to keep a close eye on is the unemployment insurance claims, which is going to provide us a sneak peek of how many people are applying for unemployment. And that's going to tell us the overall health of the economy and the labor market. But throughout this month, we're going to see companies preparing their financial statements and telling us how bad it really is. Because as these earnings reports come in, it's going to tell investors how deeply these cuts were in their sales and in their profits. So we're going to keep a close watch here at Swan Capital on earnings season. I also want to tell you that there's been some huge changes on your retirement and on your pocketbook with the new changes in the CARES Act. The first thing I want to cover is the stimulus check. You received a stimulus check based on your income of up to $1,200 for an individual, $2,400 as a married couple. And if you have children under the age of 17, you saw an extra $500. These payments were based on 2019 tax returns for those who had not filed, or 2018 returns could also be used. But if you made over $198,000, unfortunately, you didn't see anything. Now, if you're a business, there is great news that there's $500 billion set aside for help with your payroll. So that was fantastic news, and literally millions of businesses have been applying for that payroll help and loan to get them through these tough times. But as a retiree, I want to focus on one very important factor in the CARES Act, and that was suspended RMDs. If you're over the age of 72, you know that an RMD stands for Required Minimum Distributions, and that requires you to take money out of your IRA. If your IRA balance is down and you don't have to take an RMD, it's a perfect time to meet with someone like myself and your CPA to talk about a Roth conversion. Because if you're not taking your RMD, you can move that RMD that you normally would take and shift it to a Roth. It's a great opportunity right now. I also want to share with you that Shred Week at Swan Capital is fast approaching. If you're quarantined and you're saying, wow, I have ran out of things to do, my garden looks great, but I got all these papers for years to come that I've saved up, it's a perfect time to dispose of those. Our Shred Week is going to be April 27th to May 2nd, so gather those documents, drop them off at one of our 3 offices, and we'll be happy to dispose of those for you. I'm signing off for April 2020 SWAN Report and looking forward to seeing you next month. Stay safe in the meantime.